Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live. I am Kristen Smedley with my buddy Mary Fran Bontempo, here bringing you another brilliant guest. And I want you all, if you have a high school or college student, I want you to look at them right now and say, what have you been up to lately? What have you been up to
What are you
lately?
doing?
If you're yelling at them about the laundry, like what's happening in my house, or maybe the stuff from the dorm that is still in the foyer of my home, you're going to be like, okay, wait, sit down, pay attention, and see what's happening with our guest today. I am so thrilled to have one. We had Michael and Mitchell on last week on the show, and this is one of Michael's buddy from high school. They were on student council exec board and did all kinds of fun things together. But our guest today has moved into some bigger and more brilliant things now that he's out of high school, and has a really incredible mission that he's launched. And I couldn't wait to bring him to you today. As soon as I saw his Facebook post, I'm like, oh, the world needs to know about this. So without further ado, our buddy, Waseem. What's up,
Hi,
Waseem?
nice to meet you all. Thank you for
Thanks for
having me.
coming. Hey, I'm liking
so
that you wore a
excited to
hat,
have
by
you.
the way. I'm just noticing. It's hat day, Mary
Yeah,
Fran.
it's the
I don't do
quarantine
hats.
hair and the beard. I just need the trim. I just need an overall. Or,
Well, you look fine. We've been cutting our own hair here for weeks. Well, I don't know what she's been doing, but I have. So anyway, so we just need to hear this your story. You have had, for a young person, have had, just talk about sucker punches and train wrecks
right.
Yeah.
that you've had to deal with. So first of all, tell everybody a little bit about your background, and then let's get into your story about your reset.
So I have a regular story. I was born in India. We moved here when I was 2. So my dad came here a while before my mom and I did, and then he and my mom knew each other for a while in India. He went back. They got married. My mom had me, and then my dad came over here to start working and then raise money to help pay for our tickets to actually come move here. It's not. It's obviously a lot of hard work, but in this country, that's what it takes, and a lot of people are doing that every day just to survive. So we came over and we started small in the apartments, and then we moved up, we bought houses, and then we got to where we are. And so we moved around to get better schooling and better education. That was the main goal for my mom, for us, and she always felt education was the key, and she still does, to success. So we moved around, and then we ended up in Council Rock, where we eventually stayed. I went to Council Rock South. I met Mike in South. It was a great time. He showed me around and everything, and we got close, and we became really good friends. And then, so high school happened. Everything was going great. Top of my class. I applied. It's crazy, actually. I applied to, I think, about 12 schools, and I only got into 2.
Really?
And yeah,
Wow.
it was.
How's that possible?
I have no idea. And at the time, I was going through a lot, because it was just 12 years of just working your butt off, and then getting to the point and you get into your safeties, but not even like your mid-tier school. So I was told everything happens for a reason. And I didn't believe it at that time. But lo and behold, it did come about that everything does happen for a reason. So over the summer, everything was fine. Everybody was going to graduation parties. Everybody was having fun, saying goodbye and everything. And then I was actually at a friend's house, and my mom called me and said, listen, your dad's losing eyesight. We have to take him to Jefferson ER in Center City. The ophthalmologist said, we got to go ASAP. So I was actually at a friend's house for a fantasy football draft. And I went home, I took my dad, and everything. It was literally, we got to Jefferson Center City ER at, I think, like 8 p.m. maybe.
Mhm.
And just like a city ER, it was absolutely packed. So we didn't get admitted till about 12 or 1 in the morning. But we got there, and they gave us a room, but it was absolutely packed. Like they ran the X-ray, they ran the CAT scan, they ran everything, blood work and all that thing. And it was just taking a while. So I actually knew a doctor there from a prior conference I've been to. And so he recognized me, I recognized him, we talked and everything.
Oh,
And he was
wow.
like, yeah, let me go look into it. So, and this is the thing with Jefferson, the doctors there are amazing, and the staff and the nurse and everybody there is just amazing. So he rushed our scans and everything, and then the resident came back. I think it was a resident or attending came back at around 4:30 in the morning and said, "Listen, there's a huge mass in the brain." Because initially it was supposed to be just a pituitary tumor, which is really common in men in their 40s and 50s. So it's a simple surgery to remove it. But this was not on the pituitary gland. This was a very large mass in the brain. And a large mass in the brain is considered to be almond sized because every millimeter
Oh,
is
okay.
thousands of neurons. So this was a very, very big tumor. So they scheduled the biopsy and everything, and it came back that it was end stage or stage 4 brain cancer.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So
Oh,
there's
Wow.
no
oh my
currently there's
gosh.
no treatments for this. Currently there's no there's just a standard of care. It's the regular standard of care every cancer patient receives, intensive chemo along with intensive radiation every day for 6 weeks. And um, there were some trials, but the thing with trials and everything going on in the healthcare system right now is if you do sign up for the trials, there's a 50% chance you get a placebo,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just not a risk a lot of people are willing to take right now. So the trials are not very well, they don't have a lot of participants in them. So the chances of you getting a placebo are still 50%, but it's really likely that you still do. So regardless, we said no to the trials and we just proceeded with the standard of care. And then we went through with, there are a couple of drugs on the market that you can get through infusion through a simple IV. So we were doing that. That helped a bit because it stopped the growth. But the way cancer works, especially in the brain, is it just mutates like crazy. And the biggest problem with it is when you do go for radiation, they have to, they literally have a physics team there to do the math and figure out how to shoot a beam of radiation without hitting all the important parts in your brain. And every part in your brain is important.
Yeah.
So sometimes they do get it, sometimes they get the edges of it, sometimes they try and they don't get it at all. So in that case, surgery is impossible in this case because it's so deep in the hippocampus, right? I believe right above the brainstem, if I know my anatomy correctly, but it was there. So um, in the United States, actually, it's very rare for a cancer patient to get radiation twice. But my dad was having symptoms of a second tumor, but the MRI couldn't see it, even though he had multiple consecutively. So the doctor said, we have to wait till we see it because we can't give you radiation if there's nothing there, but the symptoms were there. And the symptoms being mood changes, loss of speech. Basically, he had a tumor where in the speech control area. So as he was losing control of speech, even the doctor knew that there was something going on there, but you can't give radiation if you don't know what you're pointing it at.
Yeah.
So eventually the MRI did show it, but it was too late because the radiation wouldn't have affected it. And not only did it show up there, when they did the MRI, there were a bunch more. So that's the thing with brain cancer and modern day healthcare. It's you can't see the cell line growth. So if you look at cancer as a tree, cancer that spreads, if you look at it as a tree, the central tumor you could consider the trunk of the tree, and if you look at the fruits of the tree, you could consider those the other tumors, and the branches are the cell line growth. So the
Oh.
trunk of the tree connects to the fruits through the branches, and sometimes the branches are only a single cell wide. They form a single file line with one cell,
Oh
and
my
obviously MRIs
gosh.
can't see that. So
Wow.
that's the
But
biggest
what's the
problem.
period of time that you're talking here? Because it was graduation parties till what about the time that you see that then you find out
So
all these other
actually,
bumps?
it was August 8th, I believe that, or the morning of August 8th, I think that was at 4 a.m. So I had actually put my deposit down for dorming and house and board and everything. And then a couple days later, it was like, I just had to withdraw and just say I'm commuting because I couldn't do that it wouldn't be the right thing to do to dorm and be so far away, even though it's 40 minutes away.
Where were you anticipating going to school? How far?
So by that point, I had in May, on May 5th, I think is a commitment day nationally. I had committed to Temple. So
Okay, so nearby. All right. So then instead of living there, you decided to stay home and commute, and you still went to Temple?
yeah, I'm still at Temple.
Okay.
I'm gonna be a junior.
So
Oh,
how
thank
many
God that
people
you
are
were.
in your family that are home having to handle all this?
So it was initially like, obviously if something like this happens, it's a lot. So it was my dad, his family, and then my mom and just us. So like,
Mm,
because a lot of my mom's family is still overseas, and a
okay.
lot of my dad's family is here in Chicago and around the United States. So they all came and we all got together and figured out what our next course of action was, and we got second opinions. I have connects at Sloan Memorial and then MD Anderson in Texas. So we got second opinions from there, and they all said the same thing. It's a very aggressive disease. It could have been 2 weeks that from the beginning of the tumor, or it could have been 5 years. No one really knows. So that's the
So when the
thing.
symptoms show up, is that what you mean?
Not even the symptoms. Like, so if you take the first mutant cell that begins the tumor, that
Mhm.
could have started 2 weeks before his symptoms showed up, or it could have started 5 years before his symptoms showed up, and it ramped up slowly
Okay.
until it got to a point where the cancer cell tissue actually figured out how to beat our body's defense systems.
Okay. So that was
Okay.
2018.
Right.
And then you found all the other tumors were discovered in August before you had to leave? Or was
No,
that
not in August. So they were slowly discovered. 2020, the end of 2018 was fairly stable. 2019 is when it got a little hectic in terms of, because the way it works is with chemo and then the standard and then radiation, the cancer cells are not trying to take over, but they're trying to fight to stay alive. So the cancer cell, if you think about it as an organism, they're focusing their energy on trying to stay alive, not trying to reproduce and replicate. So it kind of slowed down then. But as soon as that standard of care ends and your body doesn't have the helping agents such as the chemo and the radiation to fight the cancer cells can start mutating. And now their goal is to
Ah,
start dividing and growing. So after the standard of care and a couple months after that, it was fine. So midway through 2019, I'd say it got pretty bad.
Mm, mm.
and what ultimately happened with your dad?
So it got like he lost all movement, all speech. He had some facial expressions, and then October 31st. Yeah, October 31st is when he passed away.
Oh,
Uh,
2019, right?
yeah, 2019. So, and then yeah, October 31st he passed away. The funeral was the next day. So it was good. The way I saw it was a lot of pain. Cancer is very
Mm.
very painful, not only for the person but for the family as well. But
Hmm.
it
Yeah.
was once you know that the person is not going through any pain, it's a lot of relief on yourself, because the pain that someone goes through when at the end stages of not only life but like in cancer, in the beginning stages or anything like that, anybody who's been diagnosed with cancer and goes through the treatment, chemo itself is just
It's brutal. Yeah,
brutal. Everything,
it's
it's
brutal.
ruthless. It has no care for who you are, what you do, or how strong you are, or anything. It's a
So
great equalizer.
knowing all of that and knowing everything you went through, let's just jump for a second to what it is that made me call you to say I wanted you to come on here and talk. What is it that you're starting now?
So this is a nonprofit organization that's going to be, whose main mission is just to donate financial aid to families who cannot afford to give their loved ones end stage life care, such as palliative care or hospice care. And the thing with palliative and hospice care is people do come off of it. People do lead
Hmm.
normal lives after it. But the way the United States healthcare system is set up, and the insurance and private insurance and everything is set up, even if there's something called FMLA.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're provided FMLA by work, I believe there's different timelines, but you're given your insurance for I think about a year, on which you apply for short-term disability, and then you can apply for long-term disability. But with FMLA, you're paid for I think 8 weeks. You're paid your full salary, and then for 6 months after that, I think it's 60%. But short-term disability is easy to come by, but for long-term disability, they check your income and everything. And if you're being paid by FMLA, you can't apply for long-term disability because your income is too high then.
Oh,
So
Boy,
at
you have had to learn some lessons, like the things that you are saying at your age, for you to have had to dive into that world. I can't even imagine when most kids are, you know, figuring out where they're going to go for their dorm party on Friday night or whatever. It's wrenching to hear it, and yet it's such a testament to your strength as a human being and the strength of the human spirit in general. Like when we have to do stuff, we figure it out.
yeah, then that's the
And
only way. It's and
yeah,
obviously like some days you just want to give up. Like some days you just want to
oh,
like
every
for
other
me,
day.
right. For
Yeah,
me it was I didn't even want to come home. Like home was
yeah.
not home
It
anymore.
wasn't your sanctuary anymore.
Right.
Home's supposed
Right.
to be that place we all go and go, ah, and you had that time where home was just full of anxiety and stress and sadness and pain. And that's when you have nowhere to go and to rest and to feel that peace. That is one of the hardest things, I think, about these sucker punches that we get hit
Right.
with, because everybody needs to rest, to recharge, and you didn't have that.
Definitely. Right.
So tell us some more about, you know, you're setting up this nonprofit and how you're reaching people and what your, you know, what your plan is for this.
So the whole goal of this, the biggest thing is since you a lot of people don't have insurance. A majority of people will not have insurance when they go into hospice care because they've been dealing with a disease or they've been dealing with an illness for a while. FMLA has gone, their insurance has gone, and private insurance, obviously, if you have a pre-existing condition, is going to be through the roof if you're on hospice care. And now hospice companies and palliative care companies do have grants to support, but the thing with that is if you're at the end stage of life, morphine is the biggest friend because the pain you go through is just insane. And so morphine gets expensive. And the biggest problem, in my opinion, is the fact that the hospice companies and palliative care companies can't afford to give you more than one nurse for an hour a day.
Mm.
So everything you need help with, giving um, giving someone a shower, getting them up, moving them around the house, putting them in a wheelchair and everything, has to be done within that hour. And now across the world, when I did some research, for example, in London or in the UK, if you go, you get 4 nurses for 2 hours a day. So
Oh,
a total of
wow.
8 hours. And then you can request. So if you need someone to help organize a medicine in your weekly medicine box, you'll get a nurse for an hour to come out. And you don't even have to be a resident of the country or a citizen of the country to
wow.
get the treatment. So here, if you want the nurse for an extra hour, it's $26 an hour, which is the average rate, which is insane because you have to, again, if you
Well,
can't
if you
afford the
want, and if you want to
morphine,
do that for an hour a day for a week, if you need, like all the time, if you need an extra
right,
hour,
Yeah.
that
right.
really adds up.
And it was the biggest thing is for someone who's battling with a disease, it's having them eat, having them do physical therapy, doing anything they can to keep their mind off of it. And you need someone's help. So luckily for our family, it was me and my brother who were big enough to lift my dad and things like that. And obviously my mom's a lot smaller, like she can't lift my dad or anything. So it was okay for us to do it, but in that case it was me deciding between going to class or staying home.
Yeah.
So I was doing first semester sophomore year and the end of second semester freshman year, I was basically going to class maybe once a week and then teaching
Ugh.
myself everything else.
Wow.
So, right. And then
So the nonprofit is filling. What is the name of the nonprofit again? Let's tell everybody that.
it's called the Muzaffar Brain Trust. So Muzaffar is my dad's name. And
Aw.
then the Brain Trust is obviously brain cancer, but we're not holding off funds for just patients who have brain cancer or brain related diseases. It's anybody and everybody, no questions asked. However you need it, confidentiality is the biggest thing because that's there. And then if people decide that don't need financial aid, but rather they just rather have us help other families, then we want to give grants to the hospice companies and palliative care companies solely for the use of providing extra nurses and things like that, and extra
Wow,
that's
care and
amazing.
diapers and things like that.
Wow, this is like the ultimate. Yesterday I called somebody. So we had someone on the show that had been brilliantly resilient in the first 50 episodes. His life story was just brilliantly resilient, right? Then he came on the show yesterday as an update because he did another thing during the shutdown, right? That was brilliant again and resilient. So I was calling him brilliantly resilient. Like he's a step up. You're like brilliantly resilient est, like the top, because you
Thank you.
took the biggest life sucker punch, the biggest train wreck, and it is still so new and raw. But I guess all of that frustration and struggle is still so new and raw. And you're turning around and saying, I don't want anyone else to have to do this. It took me 10, 15, 20 years to be able to turn around and get through my pain and struggle, to be able to reach back and say, let me help someone else not go through this. And you are able to instantaneously pivot and say, I can see a need right now and let me fill it. So I'm dubbing you the brilliantly resilient est of
Thank you. I
Est.
appreciate
everybody so far.
So here's my question to you then, and it actually relates back to what Kristen was just saying. Are you finding that this is a way to help you process your pain and the struggle and the challenge? I mean, I think we tell people all the time that you have a choice to make. You can either visit these places of horribleness, or you can live there. And it seems to me you decided that, okay, we had to visit that place, but I'm not going to live there. And that this seems to be a process for you to work through. Is that how you're seeing it and processing it?
Right. So I think the biggest thing with this is, and I think a lot of people can agree to this, it's the seeing someone, a loved one, someone you care about deeply, go through the pain and struggle of just trying to beat something that has never been beaten before, has 100% mortality rate, and then having them go through that for a period of time. When the pain ends, you feel like a rush of relief. It's odd to describe, but it's a rush of relief. Whereas if you lose someone suddenly, you haven't had time to understand, cope with it, and come to grasp with the fact that the person who you lost is not at pain anymore. So I feel like I've had that time, and this is kind of a blessing in disguise. It's having that time to understand that when the pain ends, it ends for everybody, and there's just a relief. And obviously, we go through our own way to grieve. You miss the person, right? So that's the saddest part, not the fact that how do I say this? So you do miss the person. You miss the person when they miss out on things like birthdays or events or just family gatherings or dinners and things like that. So yeah, you try and remember the good times, because the bad times have a good way of poking their ugly head.
Oh, their nasty little heads. They just, boy, do they know how to get you, don't they?
Exactly.
Boy,
Right.
I'll tell you, I'm sitting here thinking the first thing I did was write down Dr. Lee Warren. I want to connect you guys to each other. He was on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he is a neuroscientist that deals with brain cancer. He actually wrote a book that I'll also get out to you, but I think that you guys would have a lot to talk about, and probably moving forward with your nonprofit, he'd be a phenomenal connection.
Right.
And I also want to connect you with Victor Pisano, our buddy Victor, because I'm hearing so much I can see with your face. And when I watch Victor talk about his dad that passed away and had inspired so much of who Victor is now, I can see that with you. I mean, your dad, I love how you started the story for all of us. So your dad came over first, and set up for you all to come over. And it's like you embody so much of your dad.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you.
I'm so, we're honored that you shared this story, and I'm just so proud. I know I sound like this old lady. I'm so proud of you that you turn this into something to help so many other people.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, I have to say, I feel, and this is going to sound weird too, but I feel like you're an old soul. I feel like you have a level of maturity, and maybe it's true that God gives us only the things that we can handle. I don't know. But clearly, you are someone who could take an experience that is, I mean, it's devastating. There's no other word for it.
Right.
But you've managed to take that and turn outward and look to where you are now and see how that experience can serve others. And Kristen and I talk about that all the time with the things that we went through.
Mm.
The way to make these experiences mean something beyond your own personal pain is to go out and see how you can help other people. And you're doing that. And it's an amazing thing. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Number one. And number two, now tell us where you're at with your studies and all that kind of stuff.
Wait, what's your major?
So I have a couple different majors.
Sound
Of
like
course
Fred
you
Michael.
do.
No wonder you
Of
and
course
Michael
you
are
have
such
a couple.
friends. Like, let's see how many majors we can have.
So I went in. I was declared a biology major when I first applied to Temple, and then I switched to math and computer science. But when my dad was diagnosed, I added a third major on neuroscience just to understand like everything that was going on.
Wow.
So, and then I picked up a certificate in genomic medicine, which deals with how cancer and everything works. So that's where I'm at right now. And then I'm a junior, so hopefully I'm studying for the MCAT and things like that. So hopefully I can maybe do an MD PhD if I get in somewhere that will take me, or hopefully just.
Wow.
You just made Michael look like a slacker.
No, Michael is amazing. Michael is an amazing guy. He's an amazing man.
He only has 2 majors and 1 minor and no certificate. I'm going to go get on him. Where's your certificate? Get a certificate or something.
Yeah,
That's
but,
just, that's
And anybody like me who was an English major is going like this right now.
But you broke it down very nicely for the rest of us, that you have such a great communication style. That's where I can't wait to see and follow where you go. And I've known that since knowing you in high school, specifically at the school board meeting where you guys took on a bunch of rowdy moms that were mad about something that they called political. And I thought it was a brilliant thing that all kids were doing together. And I watched you so eloquently calm everybody down as I was about to start grabbing people. You had everybody calm down and made it very clear what the point of everything was. And you still have that skill. And it's going to serve you very well, especially building this nonprofit and communicating your story out there.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So this is a way that we talk about those transferable skills. I mean, clearly this is something that you nurtured, as a kid. And again, kudos to your parents, because I'm sure that they had a lot to do with, as your mom said, the
Right.
education, that's really important.
Mhm.
But when we try to tell everybody, look, you don't feel boxed in because you're only an XYZ or you've only done whatever. We all have these transferable skill sets, and you are living proof of how you can take those skill sets and move them into other areas and just do really brilliantly resilient things. Thank you so much for joining us today. And where can people...
Well, let me ask you this first. Sorry to jump on you, Mary Fran. What can folks do before we ask where to find you? What can people do for the nonprofit and for you now?
So I'll tell you, I'm running it like a business, trying to maximize profits and donate everything. So that's one of the things. So I'll give our business plan. It's pretty simple. Right now, we're in the process of, I'm having a website built. My friend and I are building the website as we speak. You can donate on the website, and then we're running a merchandise store as well. So that merchandise store is actually going to be our side income to fund other fundraisers, where we can get the big bucks.
Good.
So right now we're pretty soon releasing a line of shirts that will be used to fund and other events. And the biggest event that we're looking forward to, if hopefully everything opens and stays open in a safe manner, is a 5K towards Thanksgiving. And just getting that organized takes a lot of resources and everything like that. So we're applied 501c3 tax code. We're registered in the state of Pennsylvania as a nonprofit charity, and we've applied for a Pennsylvania state tax exemption. So we're going through all the perfect right routes. So hopefully everything gets approved. But lawfully, we're allowed to collect money. And as soon as the website goes live, I'll send that to you guys, and then hopefully the shirts, you'll like the shirts and everything.
Oh, good. And then what we'll do, we have on Wednesdays, we do What's Up Wednesday, and we check back in with folks. So we'll have you in a few months when you know, you've had your feet on the ground for a little bit, see how it's going and what else people can do, what your next stage is. So make sure that you plan on giving our people a call to action for
Yeah,
what you, and stay in touch with us here locally for the stuff that and connections and all of that, and
yeah, of course.
you know, the permits and who you can go schmooze and who else schmooze for you over at the township buildings.
All right, thank you. I
Good
appreciate
time.
that.
All right, terrific. Well, oh, Waseem, I'm so, like I said, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
It's just been so great to talk with you. And like I said to all of our viewers and listeners, get your kids and have them watch this and watch this yourself again to see, you know, you really can turn your most horrible train wrecks and sucker punches into something that benefits a ton of other people. And I think that if you go into situations in your life like that, that's where you start looking for that message in the mess of how can you turn this around, then you become somebody like Waseem, the brilliantly resilient est of
Thank you.
our tribe.
Est.
Thanks for being with us, Waseem. And listen, for all of our viewers and our listeners, if you are still stuck, that you can't reset and take that first action step because you've been hit by something pretty big, go find brilliantlyresilient.net/freebies, and we've got something for you to download that can help you with that process. And then you can always DM us, and we can give you the kick that you need to reset your mindset and get moving. But thanks to everybody for tuning in again. Thanks to Waseem for being here, and stay tuned for that website. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.